Welcome, dear viewers. Sit back, relax, and sip your coffee. They told me the pay was great. They didn't mention the rules. Not until I was already deep into Death Canyon, the sun bleeding out behind the ridgeline like a gutted animal. Now I'm stuck on this winding, godforsaken stretch of highway, where silence stalks louder than any scream, and the rules are all I have to survive the night. 7 of them. Break one and something comes for you. I didn't believe it at first, but then I broke the first rule. I'd been hauling long distance for 7 years, coast-to-coast jobs, solo rides, tight deadlines. The kind of work most folks age out of by 30. But the road was all I knew. I liked the silence, the separation. No bosses breathing down your neck. No fake customer smiles. Just miles. So when the dispatch offered me an overnight canyon job for double the rate, I said yes without asking too many questions. I should have. The route wasn't on my GPS. I had to punch in coordinates manually, an old habit from when I used to do off-grid desert runs for shady companies who paid in cash and silence. They called it Death Canyon. Not a name you forget. Still, the way my dispatcher, Rick, talked about it, you'd think it was just a rough road in the backcountry. He only hesitated when he said, "You'll find a metal box in the cab. It'll explain what you need to know." That should have been a red flag. Instead, I just nodded, took the keys, and started the drive around dusk. The canyon was about 30 miles west of civilization. A no-man's land between ghost towns and forgotten highways. The pavement was barely intact. Scrub brush clawed at the shoulders. The further I went, the more unnatural the silence became. No birds. No wind. No insects chirping. The only sound was my rig groaning around each bend, tires crunching over loose gravel, and the occasional rattle of something in the trailer behind me. By the time I reached the canyon's entrance, a gap between 2 ragged red rock cliffs, the last of the sun had disappeared. The headlights carved tunnels through the growing dark, and the world felt caved in, like the canyon was swallowing me. That's when I remembered the box Rick mentioned. I reached over and popped the glove compartment. There it was. A small locked metal box. Key attached to the handle. Inside, there was only a thin stack of yellowed paper, bound with an old rubber band. At the top, in thick red marker, were the words, 7 Deadly Rules for Death Canyon. I smirked. Figured it was some kind of hazing joke. But then I read the first page. Rule number 1. Do not stop the truck for any reason between mile marker 1 and mile marker 13. If you see someone on the road, keep driving. Do not look them in the eyes. A cold weight dropped into my gut. I glanced at the odometer. I was approaching mile marker 1. I laughed nervously, folded the paper back up, and tossed it on the passenger seat. Cute, I muttered. Real cute. The canyon narrowed. Walls closed in. Shadows stretched longer. The air inside the cab grew heavy, thick like humidity, except this was desert country and it hadn't rained in weeks. Then I saw him. Standing in the middle of the road. Mile marker 2. He looked wrong. Too still. Like a cardboard cutout someone had planted on the blacktop. Dressed in dusty overalls, one arm hanging limp, the other raised in a lazy wave. I eased off the gas. And then I remembered the rule. Don't stop. Don't look them in the eyes. My fingers clenched around the wheel. I pushed down on the accelerator. The truck surged forward. The man didn't move. His wave didn't falter. As I passed him, I caught the briefest glimpse of his face. Pale. Unmoving. His eyes were, no, not eyes. Sockets. Hollow. Bottomless. I sped up. The road curved. Rocks loomed on either side, casting sharp, jagged shadows. My heart pounded. I checked the mirrors. No sign of him. Just the canyon swallowing the road behind me. Mile marker 4. Another figure. This time a woman. Wearing a blood-streaked sundress. She held out a broken baby doll in one hand. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle. I didn't slow down. She didn't move. But her mouth, it moved. Soundlessly. Lips forming shapes I couldn't read. I turned my eyes back to the road. Kept driving. I passed 3 more figures before mile marker 9. Each one closer to the truck. Each one more grotesque. A man with a missing jaw. A girl with a face burned away. A child dragging a lifeless animal by the tail. By the time I reached mile marker 13, I was drenched in sweat. And I was no longer laughing. The road widened. The canyon opened slightly, revealing a thin strip of sky. Stars had started to emerge, sharp and cold above the ridge. I pulled over, my hands trembling. I hadn't broken the rule. I didn't stop. Not until now. Not until I passed mile marker 13. I took the list again and looked at the next page. Rule number 2. Do not use the horn no matter what you see. The sound draws them closer. I didn't want to know what that meant. But part of me already did. I put the list away and started driving again. The road grew more treacherous. Steep switchbacks hugged the canyon walls. Jagged rocks littered the edges. My headlights caught glimpses of bones, scattered remains of something that once had flesh. And then, I heard it. A screech. Not from the brakes. Not from the wind. Something else. It echoed off the walls like laughter. Something ran across the road ahead of me, low to the ground, fast. I didn't honk. I didn't dare. I kept driving, white-knuckled, eyes scanning every inch of dark ahead. At mile marker 17 I saw another truck. Or what was left of one. It was off the side of the road, nose down in a shallow ravine. Rusted. Burned out. No lights. No sign of life. I slowed just enough to see the inside of the cab. Blood. Lots of it. Smears across the windshield. Finger streaks on the glass. And on the dashboard? A familiar metal box. Same as mine. I kept driving. By mile marker 20, the truck began to feel different beneath me. Heavier. Slower. As if something were weighing it down. I checked the trailer. Everything had been sealed and I hadn't hit anything. But the dashboard lights flickered. Then something moved in the side mirror. A shape. Perched on top of the trailer. Watching me. I didn't stop. I didn't honk. I didn't even look back. I just kept repeating the rules to myself, trying to drown out the rising panic. Don't stop before mile 13. Don't use the horn. Don't look them in the eyes. Then the radio turned on. I hadn't touched it. White noise poured through the speakers, sharp and hissing. Beneath it I heard a whisper. You shouldn't be here. I yanked the dial. Nothing happened. You broke the first rule. I gritted my teeth. No, I didn't. Silence. Then a laugh. Cold. Mocking. The radio shut off. And the truck grew cold. Ice began to frost over the inside of the windshield, even though the desert outside was still above freezing. I checked the dashboard again. A red light blinked, door ajar. I reached over and pushed the door panel. It was sealed. The light didn't go off. I looked into the mirror. The shape was gone. But I could hear something breathing. By mile marker 25 I saw the third rule. It wasn't on the list. It was carved into the rock wall in massive letters, like a warning for the damned. Do not speak their names. I didn't know who they were. But I had a feeling I was about to find out. The road stretched endlessly before me, snaking through the desolate heart of Death Canyon. The kind of darkness that surrounded me wasn't just the absence of light, it was a living thing. That's pressing. It clung to my windshield like tar, suffocating the headlights until they barely pierced more than a few feet ahead. But the worst part wasn't the dark. It was the silence. The kind that makes you feel like you're being watched. Followed. I hadn't seen another soul since that burned-out truck at mile 17. But I wasn't alone. I could hear them now. In the back of the cab. Whispers. Breathing. Movement that didn't belong. The voice had started up again after mile marker 26. Low, rhythmic, almost familiar. You shouldn't have come here? It hissed through the radio even though the power was off. Even when I ripped the faceplate off the dash, the voice stayed. You broke the first rule. I clenched my jaw and didn't respond. That was when the scraping began. At first, I thought it was my imagination. A metallic scratching sound like nails across a steel surface. It echoed faintly through the cab, soft as static, but it was there. I checked the side mirrors. Nothing. Then, something flickered in the corner of my eye. Just a flash, a movement, on the passenger side. I turned. The seat was empty. But the frost was back. Creeping up the inside of the windshield. Branching patterns like veins. Cold tendrils tracing their way across the glass. I could see my breath now. In the middle of a desert. In July. I reached for the box on the seat again. The list of rules. I hadn't dared look past the second one yet. But now I needed to know. I unrolled the next sheet with shaking fingers. Rule number 3. Do not speak their names, not even in your mind. If you remember them, they remember you. I felt something shift behind me. In the sleeper compartment. Like someone rolling over in bed. I slammed my foot on the gas. The rig groaned, tires squealing as I pushed it faster through the narrow canyon pass. I hadn't brought anyone with me. I never did. So there shouldn't have been anyone, back there. And yet, the curtain separating the cab from the sleeper slowly began to shift. Someone, or something, was pulling it aside. I didn't look. I didn't dare look. I kept my eyes glued to the road, chanting the rules under my breath like a prayer. Don't stop. Don't honk. Don't speak their names. A thin, gnarled hand reached up from behind the seat. Long fingers. Yellowed nails. It didn't grab me. It touched the side of my neck gently, like a mother waking a sleeping child. And then it whispered in my ear. Not in English. Not in anything I recognized. But I understood it. It wanted me to say her name. I don't know how I didn't crash. My mind felt like it was unraveling. My body screamed at me to slam the brakes, to throw open the door, to run into the canyon screaming. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I passed mile marker 28. And then the hand was gone. The curtain still swayed gently behind me. The air warmed slightly, enough for the frost to melt and drip down the windshield. But the voice stayed. It no longer spoke in whispers. Now it was laughing. And then, it changed. The laugh became a voice I knew. My sister's. Danny? My heart stopped. I gripped the wheel harder, eyes wide. Danny, it's me. It's Sarah. Please, please just talk to me. That wasn't possible. Sarah had been dead for 4 years. Car accident on Highway 40. I was the one who identified her body. There hadn't even been a face left. And yet, her voice was perfect. Exactly how I remembered it. Danny, please. I'm so cold. I don't want to be here anymore. I bit down on my lips so hard I tasted blood. Don't say it, I muttered to myself. Don't think her name. Don't remember. Don't remember. Because if I remembered her, they would too. The radio crackled to life again, high-pitched and distorted. You can save her, the voice crooned. Just say her name. Let her in. I turned the volume knob, off, then down, then up. Nothing changed. The voice was inside the speakers, the air vents, the walls. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The canyon narrowed again and the road dipped sharply. My headlights flickered, and then died completely. Everything went black. I slammed my foot on the brakes, but the truck kept moving, like it had a mind of its own. No power. No steering. I was sliding. A curve loomed ahead. I braced for impact. Then, without warning, the lights snapped back on. The road straightened. The cab jolted. Everything snapped into place again, like reality had glitched and rebooted. The clock on the dash now read 3:33 a.m. A number I didn't like. A number that never meant anything good. I coasted for another mile before the road leveled out and the truck finally responded to my controls again. That's when I saw the next mile marker, 29. Beneath it, spray-painted in dripping red. Only one can ride alone. I glanced at the passenger seat. It wasn't empty anymore. A figure sat beside me. Head turned, face hidden in a hood. It said nothing. Didn't move. I didn't look directly at it. I just kept driving. I was afraid if I acknowledged it, it would become real. But I could see its reflection in the windshield glass, twisted, wrong. Like a mannequin with skin stretched over its skull. My hands shook on the wheel. The figure leaned slightly toward me. I felt its breath, hot and damp, on my cheek. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced myself to focus on the road. White lines. Yellow dashes. Over and over. Keep moving. Don't break the rules. Then the figure whispered. I remember you. I flinched. It wasn't Sarah's voice anymore. It was mine. Perfectly mimicked. Like something had crawled inside my mouth, stolen the way I sounded, and was using it against me. I remember the scream you made, the day she died. I shut my eyes. Just for a second. When I opened them again, we were approaching mile marker 30. The figure was gone. I slowed the truck, heart pounding, and reached for the rule list. My fingers fumbled as I unrolled the next page. Rule number 4. Never let a passenger ride past mile 30. If you do, they become you. I nearly threw up. Whatever had been sitting next to me, it had been trying to become me. And I almost let it. The canyon began to open again. The cliffs widened. A silver wash of moonlight poured over the red rock walls, revealing vast, yawning ravines and deep scars in the land that looked like claw marks. I took a deep breath, gripping the wheel tighter than ever before. I hadn't broken the rule, but I had come close. Too close. Then I saw something new. A turnoff. A dirt road branching off the canyon highway, barely visible through the scrub. There was a rusted sign hanging by one chain. It simply read, Last Chance. I didn't stop. The main road continued forward, deeper into the canyon. And so did I. I looked down at the next rule. Rule number 5. At mile marker 33, someone will try to get in. They will look like someone you love. The paper trembled in my hand. I was at mile marker 31 now. 2 miles. 2 miles until I saw her again. Until I saw Sarah. Or whatever pretended to be her. I passed mile marker 32 10 minutes ago. Or maybe it was an hour. Time didn't behave the way it was supposed to here. I kept checking the dash clock and every time it flickered back to 3:33, no matter how far I drove. But I knew what was coming. Mile marker 33. Rule number 5. Someone you love will try to get in. And I already knew who it would be. Sir. The canyon's atmosphere had shifted again. The air was heavy, like something massive was watching me from above. I hadn't seen the stars for miles now. Just thick blackness pressing down on the world. Even the moon had disappeared. The road narrowed, the cliffs closed in, and my headlights dimmed. I pushed the high beams, but the light didn't stretch farther than a few yards. It felt like driving underwater. I gripped the wheel tighter as the silence returned. But it didn't stay silent for long. Because then I heard her voice again. Danny. It was soft. Familiar. Almost fragile. Like the real Sarah had come back from wherever she'd gone and just wanted to come home. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Then the radio clicked on again by itself. Only this time it wasn't static. It was her. Danny, it's cold out here. Please let me in. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes locked forward, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The cab temperature began to drop again. Ice crystals formed on the edge of the windshield. My breath came in short, visible puffs. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the passenger window. I didn't look. I couldn't. But I could feel it, her presence outside the truck just beyond the glass. The air around her felt alive, buzzing with something old and angry. I recited the rule aloud. Do not let them in. Then the voice outside turned panicked. Desperate. Danny, what's wrong with you? It's me. I'm hurt. I was in a crash, don't you remember? There was a pause. Then another knock. Slower. Louder. Knock. 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 You left me there, Danny. You let me die alone. Tears welled up in my eyes. That wasn't true. But it knew my guilt. It fed on it. You didn't even come back for me. You forgot me. You moved on. She began to cry. Not sobbing. Not human crying. The sound was wet, broken. Like lungs that hadn't breathed in years trying to force out regret. I shook my head and floored the gas. The truck roared forward, tires squealing on the cracked canyon asphalt. The knocking stopped. Then the door opened. Not fully. Just a click. Just enough for cold air to rush in and make my skin crawl. But the lock had been engaged. I knew it. I locked it at the start of the drive. I turned slightly, just slightly, to look at the passenger seat. It was empty. But the door was now ajar. And just outside, crouched in the darkness, I saw her face. Twisted. Bloated. Split down the middle from the crash she died in. But still smiling. She reached out and pressed one mangled hand to the glass. Let me ride with you, Danny. I slammed my elbow into the lock and yanked the wheel left. The truck careened dangerously close to the canyon edge, but the door snapped shut with a loud clunk. The radio screamed. It wasn't music. It wasn't static. It was her scream, the last sound she ever made before the crash, echoing through the speakers like it had been recorded and played on repeat. I reached for the glove compartment and found the folded rules again. Hands shaking, I unrolled the next one. Rule number 6. At mile marker 34, the road will vanish. Do not stop driving. Even if you see nothing. Especially if you see nothing. I looked up just in time to see the sign. Mile 33. I slammed the gas pedal again. And the road, just as the rule said, began to vanish. It didn't fade gradually. One moment it was there, worn and cracked under my headlights. The next, nothing. Just empty blackness stretching endlessly in every direction. My tires no longer hummed on pavement. The sound had vanished completely. There was no feedback, no texture, no vibration. It felt like I was floating. And then the stars came back. But not the sky I remembered. They were wrong. Too many. Too bright. Some moved in unnatural directions, forming impossible patterns, like constellations that were watching me. Or judging me. Then I looked out the side mirror. There was no truck. No trailer. No road. Just blackness behind me, and ahead. And yet, the rig kept moving. My hands were locked on the wheel, even though it no longer seemed to control anything. I stared forward, unblinking. The stars blinked back. Then, in the darkness ahead, I saw something else. A figure. Standing directly in my path. I couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. The rules had been clear. As I passed through it, the figure didn't move. It didn't flinch. It didn't resist. It simply vanished, as though it had never been there at all. Then the road returned beneath me. Pavement, lines, rumble. Reality clicked back into place like a tape spooling correctly again. And with it came the final mile marker. Mile 34. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The canyon widened. The stars returned to their proper places. And the dashboard clock changed for the first time since I started this nightmare. 4:04 a.m. But the silence didn't last. Because the CB radio lit up, glowing green for the first time on the drive. It wasn't connected to anything. I hadn't even turned it on. But through it came a new voice. Flat. Mechanical. Not quite human. You have followed 6 rules. One remains. Then the final rule unrolled itself in my lap. The paper was different this time. Older. Torn. The ink looked like it had been smeared with ash. I read it aloud. Rule number 7. You may leave Death Canyon only if you finish what you started. If not, you stay. Forever. The radio crackled again. Then a voice whispered almost cheerfully, "Make your choice, Daniel." The road ahead split. 2 paths. One led back toward familiar mountains, rising behind mist and dawn's first hints of gold. Home. Safety. A return to the life I'd tried to escape. The other veered deeper into the canyon, into parts of the map that didn't exist. A place no satellite had ever seen. I glanced down. The box of rules was gone. In its place was a mirror. Small. Cracked. It showed not my reflection, but hers. Sarah. She stared at me with lifeless eyes. Waiting. Silent. She didn't need to speak. I knew the choice she wanted me to make. And somehow, I knew what the rule meant now. Finish what you started. This wasn't about a road. It wasn't about a route. This was penance. A drive I had to make to atone for something I still hadn't faced. And if I turned back now, if I took the left road, I would be breaking the final rule. I would be leaving it unfinished. And I wouldn't be alone when I returned. I took the right path. Deeper into the dark. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. Because some drives don't end with a destination. Some keep going until you understand the road. Until you face what you left behind. I thought the road would lead nowhere. That driving deeper into Death Canyon would mean disappearing into blackness. Endless winding cliffs and haunted mile markers, with no sign of civilization ever again. But I was wrong. There was something beyond. And that something was a town. A town that didn't exist on any map. A place no GPS had ever named. A town that waited just after the 7th rule had been read. The road narrowed as I left the canyon proper and crossed an old iron bridge. The metal was rusted, brittle, and it groaned beneath the weight of my semi like it hadn't carried a vehicle in decades. Below me, a dry riverbed stretched out like a scar, dotted with shattered bones and the skeletons of long-dead cars. Then I saw it. Through the fog. The town. It had no name on any sign. The first thing I noticed was that nothing moved. Not a single person in the streets. Not even wind through the trees. The whole place sat in a state of eerie stillness, bathed in a permanent twilight. I coasted the truck through the empty main road, unsure why my foot had even lifted from the gas. My hands weren't guiding anymore. The truck was just moving like it had been summoned here. Houses lined the road, Victorian style, but all decayed. Roofs caved in. Shutters hanging crooked. Yards overgrown with weeds that didn't look natural. Black stems, sharp leaves, pulsing faintly with reddish light as if feeding off the silence. The storefronts were worse. General stores with shattered glass. An old movie theater whose marquee still read, "Now showing your regrets." I stopped in the middle of the square. That's when I saw them. The people. Or at least, what used to be people. They emerged slowly from alleyways, doorways, and behind tilted lamp posts. Dozens of them. All dressed like they belonged to different time periods. 1950s suits, 1800s bonnets, early 2000s hoodies. Some were barefoot. Others had broken heels or tattered uniforms. But all had the same hollow expression. Like they remembered something they wished they didn't. Their skin was pale. Almost transparent in places. And their eyes. God, their eyes were all wrong. Not just blind. Not just empty. But searching. They stared through me like I wasn't there. Or like I was but I didn't belong. One woman stepped forward. Her face was familiar. Too familiar. Was my mother. Dead 3 years now. Cancer had taken her in a hospice bed across the country. I had been too late to say goodbye. She smiled at me. Weakly. "Danny," she whispered. My breath caught. I started but couldn't speak. She took another step. Her form flickered. A brief static glitch like a TV screen scrambling. When it resolved, her face was half rotted. Her teeth exposed through a torn cheek. She opened her mouth again but this time it wasn't her voice. was mine. Why didn't you come back? I slammed the truck into reverse and tore backward, tires squealing against broken pavement. But I didn't get far. The rear view showed dozens more now, figures emerging from the shadows. Some I recognized. Old friends I hadn't seen since high school. Coworkers I'd let down. A man I hit in a crosswalk during a snowy night in Montana years ago. He'd limped away, swearing he was fine, but he was here now, his legs mangled, dragging behind him. The town had collected everyone I'd left behind. Every failure. Every regret. And it wanted me to stay. The truck sputtered to a stop near the old diner on the edge of the square. My headlights caught the dusty sign hanging crooked above it. Welcome to regret. Below it, a smaller placard read, "You can't leave until you know why you're here." I heard the door creak open. Not the truck door. The diner's door. Against every instinct I had, I stepped out. The air was freezing and thick with a smell I couldn't quite place. Part mildew, part blood, part something nostalgic. The figures didn't follow. They just stood at the edge of the square watching. I approached the diner like a man walking into his own eulogy. Inside everything was clean. Too clean. The counters sparkled. The booths were set for guests. No dust, no decay. The jukebox in the corner played faint jazz, slightly warped, like it came from a broken record player underwater. At the counter sat a man in a trucker cap, sipping black coffee. He didn't look up as I entered. But the waitress did. She looked like Sarah. But older. Wiser. And sad. Her eyes met mine. "You're late, Danny. I don't understand what this place is." "You will," she said softly. "You brought it with you." She motioned to the stool beside the man. I sat. The man turned slowly. He looked like me. Exactly like me. But his face was aged, tired, eyes sunken. "You're the one who gave up," he said. I didn't answer. He took another sip of coffee and gestured to the window. Out there, the townspeople were moving again. Not aimlessly, but in patterns. Circles. Loops. Everyone who drives through the canyon carries ghosts. Not all of them make it this far. You did. That means you're either close to the truth, or close to giving in. "What truth?" I asked. The waitress leaned in, setting down a plate of untouched pie. "That you came here for more than a drive." The lights in the diner flickered. The sky outside turned deep red. And the walls began to rumble. The figures in the streets pressed their faces to the glass, eyes wide. I stood, backing away from the counter. "What's happening?" "You're not ready to know," the man said. "But you have to choose." The waitress handed me a key. Rusted. Tag attached. "Room 7, final stop." "There's only one way out now," she said. "Where is it?" She pointed toward the back of the diner. A hallway I hadn't noticed before. The lights dimmed further. And from the hallway came the sound of someone crying. A child. I turned toward it, holding the key tight, heart pounding. As I stepped down the hall, the noise of the diner faded, replaced by a rising hum, like the sound of an engine, or maybe my own heartbeat roaring in my ears. The doors lining the hall were numbered 1 through 7. All were shut. Except the last. Room 7. The door creaked open as I approached. Inside was a motel-style room, bed, mirror, nightstand. And sitting on the bed, was me. Or what I could become. Older. Hollow. Empty-eyed. He looked up as I entered, then down to the nightstand. There was a revolver there. 1 bullet inside. "I didn't finish the drive," he said flatly. I turned back. I thought I could escape. But I only escaped into this. He motioned around the room. No past. No future. Just this place. Forever. The revolver glinted in the red light. He picked it up and held it out to me. "I'm tired. Maybe you'll finish it right this time." I didn't take the gun. Not yet. I stared into the mirror. It didn't reflect the room. It showed the canyon. The truck. The road. Still waiting for me. Then something spoke, not aloud but inside me. "You are not the first. You will not be the last. But you might be the one who understands." My reflection smiled. But I didn't. I grabbed the key again and turned to leave. Behind me, the other version of myself began to cry. I didn't look back. The hallway had no end anymore. Just an exit sign. Red. Buzzing. I opened the door beneath it and stepped back outside. But the town was gone. The truck sat alone in an open desert, bathed in red morning light. No canyon walls. No people. Just me. And the road. The final stretch. As I climbed back into the rig, the radio whispered one last time. "You've passed 7 rules, Daniel. But there's always one more." I turned the ignition. The engine roared to life. And with it, the voice said, You can drive forward now. But can you live with what you've seen? The road was no longer cracked and forgotten. It stretched straight and endless, a ribbon of black laid out across a flat, blood-orange desert. And for the first time since I entered Death Canyon, I felt something almost like peace. Almost. The town of regret was gone. Its ghosts and echoes buried behind me. But the weight of what I'd seen, what I'd learned, that stayed with me like a second skin. I glanced at the dashboard. 4:44 a.m. The exact time I'd started this trip 5 nights ago. Only now the clock wasn't blinking. The time was fixed. Constant. Outside, the rising sun didn't move either. It hovered, suspended in a permanent state of almost. Like the world was paused, waiting for something to be decided. I drove in silence for what felt like hours. No other cars. No signs of life. Until I saw it. A green mile marker sign on the right shoulder. Mile 0. The lettering was wrong, almost hand-painted. Faded. Crooked. But that wasn't what froze my blood. No. It was what stood next to it. A figure. Not moving. Not waving. Just watching. I pulled the truck to a stop about 30 yards away. The figure didn't flinch. I stepped out, boots crunching dry gravel. The heat out here was thick but not natural. Like a fever. Like the desert itself was sick and dreaming. As I approached, I saw it was a child. A girl. No older than 8. Dressed in a tattered red dress, barefoot, long black hair hiding most of her face. And when she looked up, she had my eyes. I didn't speak at first. I couldn't. The closer I got, the more the desert around us shifted. It shimmered like heat waves, but the shapes behind those waves weren't cacti or rocks. They were shadows of other places. Hospital rooms. High school hallways. My old bedroom. A car crash in the snow. The motel room I almost died in. It was like every memory I tried to bury had taken root here, blooming into ghosts just out of reach. Who are you? I finally asked. The girl blinked slowly. You already know. And deep down I did. She was the part of me I'd left behind. The innocence. The vulnerability. The hope. She turned and pointed down the road. And there it was. The end. Not a destination, not a city or rest stop. Just a wall. Like the sky and earth had conspired to build a barricade at the end of existence. A jagged, towering cliff of pitch-black stone stretching miles in either direction. Painted on its surface in crude white strokes. Every choice leads here. Beneath it sat a rusted sign swinging in the still air. To exit this road, you must pay the toll. I swallowed hard. What toll? The girl smiled. But not cruelly. Almost sadly. One final truth. We walked to the base of the wall. There, embedded in the rock, was a small metal box. Like a donation slot. Beneath it, etched in steel. Insert the memory you fear the most. I stepped back. I can't. You have to, she whispered. It's the last rule. No one said anything about this. There were 7 rules, 7. She tilted her head. And what comes after 7? I stared at the wall. At the box. At her. My chest tightened. Because I knew what memory it wanted. The night I truly lost myself. I was 17. Driving too fast through rain-slick streets after a fight with my father. My little brother had begged to come with me, wanting to get ice cream. I said yes. I never should have said yes. A deer crossed the road. I swerved. The car flipped. When I came to, the windshield was shattered and the world was silent. Too silent. My brother was gone before the paramedics even arrived. I'd never told anyone the full truth. Not my family. Not the courts. Not myself. I closed my eyes and pressed my hand against the slot. It burned. Not with fire, but with memory. Images slammed into my skull like a freight train. Rain. Screams. Blood. His small, lifeless body crumpled against the dash. Me sobbing in the wreckage. Not calling for help. Just screaming his name over and over. It was the moment my heart broke. The moment I stopped being a person and became a ghost wearing skin. The metal clicked. And the wall in front of me cracked. A fissure formed down its center, glowing with a warm, golden light. The girl, my younger self, reached for my hand. It's time, she said. I didn't know what lay beyond the wall. Maybe it was death. Maybe it was life. Maybe it was just freedom. I took her hand. We stepped forward together. The light consumed us. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt whole. I opened my eyes. I was back in my truck. Engine humming. Sun rising for real this time, crawling higher in a clear blue sky. I looked around. No sign of the canyon. No girl. No wall. Just asphalt stretching behind me, and ahead a new road. Fresh. Unknown. I checked the clock. 7:01 a.m. It was Monday. The start of a new week. I drove. And as the world passed me by, I noticed something different. I felt the wind again. I saw birds flying overhead. I passed another vehicle, a red trucker rig, and the driver waved. I waved back. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I felt like I was going somewhere. But as I passed a roadside mirror nailed to a telephone pole, I saw a flicker of something in my reflection. The girl, still sitting quietly in the passenger seat, watching the horizon, smiling. Maybe she was a part of me now. Or maybe I was hers. The end.